Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for being here today. My name is Priya Cherry. I'm the head of adult services here at Forbes Library. Thank you for joining us today in the Calvin Coolidge Presidential Library and Museum, and we're happy to be live streaming this event for folks joining us from home. For those of you here at Forbes, the restrooms and the water fountains are located through the gallery into the Arts and Music Department and to the left, and the main exit and the elevator are through the gallery and to the right. I'd like to share some words from our library director, Lisa Downing. She wishes she could be here today with us celebrating this anniversary. Lisa writes, Forbes is honored to be hosting today's celebration and is deeply committed to being Forbes for all. The power of the public library is that it is for everyone, and for us, that means being a welcoming community gathering place where barriers to access are eliminated wherever and whenever possible. Recent accessibility work here at Forbes includes improvements to our bathrooms by adding push-button door openers and improved ventilation, the construction of an accessible performance stage on our lawn, updates to our website with the needs of screen readers in mind, and coming soon, the addition of a new youth programming room that will better support the needs of children and teens, including those who are neurodiverse. We would like to recognize Forbes staff member Ben Kalish for his deep commitment to accessibility. He works hard to ensure the ideas and concerns of those with disabilities are heard and addressed. He also chairs the Accessibility Committee that invites community members with lived experience to provide feedback and suggestions. Please consider joining us. Libraries are facing challenges as a result of our current political climate, including funding cuts, price increases, and threats to intellectual freedom. Many in our community also face challenges as policies shift toward isolationism and critical programs for the most vulnerable among us are defunded. Forbes remains steadfast in our commitment to being a safe, welcoming, inclusive, and accessible space. And Lisa ends her comments by saying, I love the move to disability pride versus disability awareness. Our differences are beautiful, and I'm ready for a cultural shift where no one should have to be in the closet about their differences. As the parent of a child with special needs, in quotes, my daughter has showed me that what I really need to focus on are her special abilities. She doesn't need to change to fit the world. We need the world to fit her and all of us. So thank you, Lisa. On behalf of Lisa and the staff of Forbes Library, thank you all for being here, either in person or virtually. We will get started with remarks by Representative Lindsay Sabadosa. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Lindsay Sabadosa, and I am the state representative for the 1st Hampshire District, which includes the city of Northampton and 8 communities in Western Hampshire County. I wanted to start today with a quote from Senator Tom Harkin, who was the individual that sponsored the Americans with Disabilities Act legislation. And he said, people always refer to me as the author of the Americans with Disabilities Act. I correct them. I'm not the author of the Americans with Disabilities Act. I'm the sponsor of it, sure. I sponsored it. I wrote a lot of it. We got it through. But the authors were all those people with disabilities who came before, who struggled, who fought, who marched, who demonstrated, who laid down under the wheels of the Greyhound buses, who chained themselves to doors. All the people you saw in that movie Crip Camp, they're the ones that are the authors of this legislation, not me. That quote from Senator Harkin really resonates with me, because all good legislation comes from people. It comes from your advocacy and speaking up to tell legislators where there are gaps and how we can best fill them. We can't live in each other's shoes, but we can listen to each other and learn, and that's what legislation does at its best. I was very honored to be asked to speak here today at the celebration of 35 years of the Americans with Disabilities Act and during Disability Pride Month. And I was particularly honored because I've had the enormous pleasure in recent months of joining the Commission on the Status of Persons with Disabilities here in Massachusetts. Now, that commission came about because of people like you, who back in 2020 told the legislature that we were not listening carefully enough to individuals with disabilities. We've consistently tried to pass good laws, but we didn't have the right voices at the table. This commission is permanent, and it has sort of a rotating cast of legislators, but it is centered and run by individuals with disabilities. There are 23 members, and we meet regularly at the State House to understand what the issues are. And in recent weeks, we've talked a lot. We've talked a lot about how every single thing we're doing as a nation and as a state are impacting individuals with disabilities. And some of our members have done a wonderful job of writing op-eds and trying to get the word out that changes in immigration policies have a direct impact on the disability community. Thank you. Yes. How changes in Medicaid are absolutely going to have an impact. And I unfortunately keep telling people Massachusetts will not be able to fix everything that the federal government takes away. We cannot fill every bucket. But I have faith that with this commission, we're going to identify the most critical issues, and we are going to center and focus on them because people like you show up and tell us what's needed. So thank you for being here today and for your continued vocal advocacy. It will get us through everything that's coming. All right, so we're going to pass off introductions, and I will do a better job of setting that example now. Next up, we are going to hear from Andrew Batchelor, the acting regional chief at the Attorney General's office, and Andrew is also a Northampton resident.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for being here, both in person and remotely. As Representative Sabadosa said, my name is Andy Batchelor, and I'm the acting chief for the Western region of the Massachusetts Attorney General's office. The Attorney General herself, Andrea Joy Campbell, wishes that she could have been here, and she's sorry that she's not, as we gather to celebrate the momentous signing of the Americans with Disabilities Act 35 years ago today. Fortunately, I am joined by my colleague, Nia Johnson, who runs our Community Engagement Division in Western Massachusetts. And we're just two of the people in our office that do some work in the disability rights area. There's others who focus their time there, and I wanted to share a little bit with you about the work that they are doing to fight for the rights of Massachusetts people with disabilities. But before I get into that, I just wanted to provide a little bit of context. As Representative Sabadosa said earlier, the Americans with Disabilities Act didn't just come about because people in Washington, D.C. enacted it and the president signed it into law. People fought for it for decades. There was no federal civil rights statute prohibiting discrimination against people on the basis of disability until 1973, when Section 504 was passed. And when that happened, the federal government didn't pass any regulations to enforce it, so it was largely ignored for many years. But people fought for it, they fought for regulations to be enacted, and eventually they were. And in the 80s, when the presidential administration tried to get rid of those regulations, the people rose up again, and the regulations stayed. And as good as Section 504 was and the regulations were, they weren't enough. And so people fought more, they worked more. As Senator Harkin said, they did the hard work, and we were fortunate enough to get the Americans with Disabilities Act as a result in 1990. And the work has continued since then for the next 35 years. It continues today, and it will continue in the future. As just one example, last month, my office, the Attorney General's office, filed a comment letter objecting to the federal government's efforts to repeal physical accessibility requirements issued by the Department of Energy. And that is just one of the efforts the Attorney General is making to try to hold the federal government accountable when we believe they're going backwards or breaking the law. That often gets the attention in the press, such as when the Attorney General's office files suit to protect federal spending on health care and education in Massachusetts, or when we issue guidance reminding people that diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility is not only legal, but vital to our Commonwealth. But for all that federal work, we don't lose sight of everything that we can do and have to do in the meantime with Massachusetts laws. Our priorities include affordable, accessible housing, accessible medical providers, and accessible democracy. As just one example, everyone needs a dentist, but not all dentists make their offices accessible. And there was one example recently where a dentist refused to provide dental care to a patient who had the audacity to come to her dentist's office without someone to lift her out of her wheelchair and into the dentist's chair. Now, of course, there's a federal guidance explicitly stating that that violates the ADA, that the dentist can't require someone to bring their own aid to lift them out of their chair and into the dentist's chair. And so our office brought an action in that case and reached a resolution where the dentist now has a Hoyer lift in their office, a fully accessible office where people who are using a wheelchair can get the care they deserve. And that's something that our office can do because of the Americans with Disabilities Act. And there's a lot we can do thanks to other laws, because the ADA doesn't cover everything. Much of our work is in the area of housing. Very generally, under Massachusetts law, a tenant with a disability is entitled to a reasonable accommodation if it is necessary for them to live in the unit. So if the tenant needs a ramp or a walk-in shower, carpet removal, an assistance animal, or auxiliary aids and services, the landlord should provide those. And yet, landlords who should know better, like a very large landlord here in Western Massachusetts, wasn't providing those services. In particular, they weren't providing ASL interpreters to prospective tenants who requested that help when they were filling out application paperwork. Our office got involved, and now that landlord, which has properties across the state, although this started here in Western Massachusetts, that landlord has a policy requiring auxiliary aids and services and has the Mass Commission for the Deaf and Hard of Hearing provide training to their staff. So we do work to hold the federal government accountable, we're doing work under Massachusetts law, and we're advocating for new Massachusetts law. You heard about the commission that Representative Sabadosa is on. A colleague of mine, Ann Lynch, is an attorney and on that commission as well. And our office as a whole is advocating to add disability to the categories protected under the Massachusetts Student Anti-Discrimination Act, and trying to protect consumers by advocating to give them stronger wheelchair warranty and repair rights. And that advocacy that's using Massachusetts law, protecting federal law, is the Attorney General's role in the collective action that we are all taking to celebrate the ADA and protect rights now and in the future. Thank you for all the work that you're doing and having us here today. And with that, it's my honor to introduce our next speaker, Northampton's Mayor, doing my job for me, the Mayor of Northampton, Gina-Louise Sciarra.
Thank you. Hi, everybody. As I was looking at the calendar for today, I was briefly stressed out when I realized I had two back-to-back events and that I wasn't sure how I was going to be able to change for this event. This is not what I usually wear. And then I realized that actually this is the perfect thing for me to be wearing right now, because I just came from the opening of our new pickleball courts at Ellerbrook Field. Those are 6 fully accessible pickleball courts that we just opened today. One of the court number 1 is larger and has more room for wheelchairs, but they are all wheelchair accessible. And it was a perfect day for us to be commemorating that. And so that is why I'm dressed like this. And I hope you all check out those courts and enjoy them. So thank you all for being here. As we gather to celebrate this anniversary, I'm going to get super political, sorry. The Trump administration and Congress are working really hard, as you've heard, to cut federal funds for disability rights centers, for critical health care, for federal entitlement grants for kids with disabilities. We are here to celebrate this amazing legislation that happened, and I don't want to bring the room down, but we have to recognize that this milestone, as we recognize this milestone, that we have to acknowledge what is being stripped away and what is very much at risk. So I don't know if you've seen this. I've seen it. It's popped up on my feed a lot lately. There's this great video that's going around on social media about what's the curb cut effect. So that improving accessibility benefits everybody. It's a woman in the UK who did this wonderful video that talks about all of these different innovations that happened that were specifically for accessibility for someone with a disability, but that it has all of these other benefits for the larger community. And, you know, I hate to be so cynical, but I do think that that's why these rights are very much being targeted right now, right? Because they are beneficial to everyone. They provide equal access and opportunity for everyone. And it's for assistance for people who need it, not, and that's not really what this federal administration is about. So they're really more about more for those who already have, as opposed to providing things for people who need it, and then how that's expansive for everybody. So, like on so many fronts right now, we absolutely need to fiercely guard and expand those protections that we have at the state and here at the local level. So as Rep. Sabadosa said, and as Regional Chief Batchelor talked about, we need to continue to protect those rights and to rebuild our communities to provide access and expand our ideas of what that means. So like the pickleball courts that we opened up today, another example, I just met with the Broadbrook Coalition yesterday, and we spent a lot of time talking about an accessible path that is in design. So we need to, for that path goes to the marsh at Fitzgerald Lake. So that's something that we've been working on. So we need to be continually thinking about how we can be expansive and make everyone's worlds larger. And so that's something that I hope we can all think about a lot today as we do celebrate this wonderful, amazing anniversary of 35 years. But we need locally to push and to create as many spaces as we can as the federal government looks to cruelly constrict spaces. So thank you for inviting me to be here and talk about this. It's my honor as mayor to recognize and proclaim today. I have a proclamation. And so proclaiming today the 35th anniversary of the Americans with Disabilities Act, July 26, 2025, whereas the Americans with Disabilities Act, ADA, was passed on July 26, 1990, to ensure the civil rights of citizens with disabilities and establish legislation with clear and comprehensive national mandates for the elimination of discrimination against individuals with disabilities. And whereas the ADA has expanded opportunities for Americans with disabilities by reducing barriers, changing perceptions, and increasing full participation in community life. And whereas as we celebrate this anniversary, civil and human rights are under attack by the current presidential administration as they work to reconstruct those barriers and restrict the rights, laws, and critical funding protecting people with disabilities. And whereas the City of Northampton strongly affirms the principles of equality and inclusion for people with disabilities as set forth by the Americans with Disabilities Act, the laws of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, and ordinances of the City of Northampton, and we recommit our efforts to full promise of the ADA. So now, therefore, I, Gina-Louise Sciarra, the mayor of the City of Northampton, do hereby proclaim July 26th as the Americans with Disabilities Act's 35th anniversary day, and I ask the residents of Northampton to commit to the promise of hope and freedom that is envisioned by the passage of the ADA 35 years ago. In witness whereof, I've set my hand and imprinted the city seal of Northampton on this July 26, 2025. Thank you very, very much for listening to me. And it is now my honor to introduce the Ward 4 City Councilor, my City Councilor, Jeremy Dubbs, to come to the microphone.
hold it, actually. Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much, Mayor and Lindsay Sabadosa. And Andy, I thank you also. I appreciate everything that you've all said. And just want to introduce myself. My name is Jeremy Dubbs. I am the city councilor here in Ward 4 in Northampton. I just wanted to talk a little bit about my journey that brought me here to be able to be here with you all, speaking with you today. First, just to talk about, like, when I was a child. I was born in 1978, so ADA is 35 years old. I'm 47 years old. So I remember a time when ADA was not around, and I remember what that was like. And we could just start all the way back in 1978 when I was a baby. And 4 weeks after I was born, I was diagnosed with a medical condition called osteogenesis imperfecta, which is abbreviated as OI. And it's a brittle bone disease, basically, which means I was going to break a lot of bones growing up. And I underwent a lot of surgeries and was in a lot of body casts and things like that growing up. So when I was diagnosed 4 weeks after I was born, the doctors suggested to my mom that I could potentially live in an institution for disabled people, and like an assisted living facility. And there weren't the rights and protections that we have now. And so there was a time, and to go to echo what the mayor said about the threats that we face today. There was an executive order recently that basically said that it's possible to institutionalize people with mental health disabilities. So I've always had that fear in my life that was a possibility, and I've always been grateful to my mother, because on that day she decided that she was going to take me home, and that was a life-changing experience for me, obviously, because I probably wouldn't be here today speaking with you. And so, growing up pre-ADA, I was very quiet. I was a very quiet child. I didn't speak up for myself. And if they had told me back then that I would be speaking so openly about my disability as an adult, I probably wouldn't even believe you, because it took a long time for me to be able to get to this point. My earliest memories of advocacy for my rights were my parents. First with my mom deciding to take me home and to take care of me and give me a life of freedom. And then another early memory is a movie theater that we used to go to that had stairs to get to it, a lot of stairs. And my dad, one time he spoke to the manager, and this is pre-ADA. He said that if you don't build a ramp here, my family's never going to come back. And they built a ramp for us, and so that was my earliest memory of somebody speaking up for my rights. And then when it came time for me to go to school, my parents they contacted the school a year before I was going to attend, and said that our son wants to attend the same school as his siblings, but the school was inaccessible, had a lot of stairs in it, and so the community got together and raised funds so that they could build a wheelchair lift at the school where I went, so I was able to go to the same school with my siblings. And then, so growing up, as I became a young adult, I didn't feel like I fit in very much in terms of how I was going to be employed someday, because it's very difficult to find employment as a disabled person. And so I ended up joining a rock band and playing music for about 20 years, and I was not political at all at the time. Just wanted to have fun, and I didn't talk about my disability. And in fact, a lot of people would sometimes say to me, they would say, "Oh, Jeremy, when we hang out, I forget that you're disabled." And I took that as a compliment, and I knew that they meant well. But at a certain point, I realized that if people are forgetting that I'm disabled, then they're also going to forget my needs and my rights. And so over time, well, eventually I moved to Northampton with my band, and I would, I've lived here for 20 years now, and would see, over time, I would see that there's a lot of inaccessible businesses around here, that many sidewalks are not in ADA compliance, and during winters, there's not a great deal of snow removal. When a lot of times disabled people are stuck in their houses in the winter times. And when I would see that this was happening year after year, I eventually started to speak up about it. And eventually I joined the Northampton Disability Commission. And then I eventually decided to keep going with that, and I ran for city council. And so here I am today. And I'm very grateful for all the people that spoke up for our rights, that made ADA possible. And I've always said that I've always, as I would travel the country, and as a band member, I would go to I would play venues that were not accessible, and eventually I started to realize that if I want to see changes in the world, I need to start where I am in the town, in the city that I live in, and to try to change my immediate surroundings, and then see what I can do to influence people and be a voice for the disabled people in Northampton. And I'm so proud to be able to do that, and to be able to be here during Disability Pride Month is pretty amazing. So thank you all, and I'm happy to be here, and thanks everybody for coming. Who's next? And it's my honor to introduce Naya Tenorowitz, disability and climate justice activist.
Give me a second. My name is Naya Tenorowitz. I am an environmental justice organizer with the Springfield Climate Justice Coalition and a steering committee member of Climate Action Now Western Mass, but my roots are in disability justice organizing. I got started in college to try and make my school more accessible because most of them are still really not. Today, as we commemorate the achievements of the disability rights and disability justice movements, as we look at how far we have come, even as we acknowledge how far we have yet to go, I cannot help but feel as though the ground below me is unstable. I sit here upon years of work, struggle, and hard-won successes of the disabled activists who came before me. A great accessible monument, rising ever higher. I want to be able to keep building on our rights, to gain the right to marry without losing my benefits, to dismantle the draconian requirements that keep us in institutionalized poverty, to fight for the rights of those deprived of their autonomy by institutionalization and conservatorships, to make gains in housing equality, decrease workforce discrimination, ban sub-minimum wage for disabled workers, and so much more. But I cannot trust the solidity of this monument, the durability of the laws that grant me the rights I have, as this presidential administration takes a jackhammer to its foundation. So today, I will speak to my perspective as a disability advocate on the overlaid crises of climate and fascism that we face, and offer a path forward grounded in the fundamental principles of disability justice. And if you thought that Mayor Sciarra's speech was political, buckle up. To start with, I'll speak on the intersection of disability justice and environmental justice. As a proud member of the disabled community and a recipient of disability benefits, as well as a resident of Springfield, an environmental justice community and also home to a lot of other disabled folks. Many who live in EJ communities become disabled by the pollution, toxic contamination, or other hazards that are disproportionately cited in our communities. Many people who were already disabled for other reasons end up living in EJ communities because we are kept under systemic poverty by the government assistance programs that help keep us alive. and as a result, frequently find homes in low-income communities. Viewing the entwined impacts of the climate crisis and environmental injustice through the lens of disability, we see a story of magnified risks and minimized resources and support. When the ever more frequent heat waves hit our communities, when the smoke from larger and ever increasing wildfires blow in, those of us with disabilities and chronic illnesses are hit first and worst. Many of us live in poverty, with very few resources to keep cool, to filter our air, to minimize the time we have to spend out in the pollution and the heat. And in a country without universal health care, when health care is often tied to work and Medicaid is being torn away from millions, the danger of death from climate-induced medical emergencies can only grow higher. When extreme weather events strike, the disabled and elderly, especially those of us who are poor, are the most likely to be unable to evacuate or to be injured during evacuation, or to be forced to evacuate without our disability aids into inaccessible locations that fail to meet our needs. In this moment of growing crisis and increasing vulnerability, community support is our best defense and our lifeline for survival, and our best path to build a better future for us all. Disabled folks, both inside and outside of EJ communities, are in this fight together with all other marginalized groups. People of color, Indigenous people, immigrants, poor people, queer and intersex people, and the people of Palestine and all other targeted communities around the world. All of these groups have disabled members, and all of us have united interests. The reason for this is increasingly evident, as each day it becomes more explicitly clear that the federal government and the capitalist ruling class do not see our lives as valuable, as worthy of protecting and preserving. We are a nation in crisis, and the disabled community is sounding the alarm to those who will listen. Fascist governments always target the most vulnerable first. In this case, they are targeting immigrants viciously, rapidly moving towards all-out ethnic cleansing, and disabled immigrants are some of the first to die. They are targeting the trans and intersex community, again, impacting disabled trans and intersex people. And they are targeting the disabled community overall, as fascists always do. Attacks on the rights and lives of disabled people have come from many angles, all driven by the fundamental ableism and eugenicism of the Trump administration. We have RFK Jr., an anti-science, anti-vaxxer as the Secretary of Health and Human Services, whose rhetoric and actions have already killed many, and who now has a platform to kill and harm an astronomically higher number, especially those of us who are already disabled and chronically ill. We have the attacks on the Social Security system, the lifeline that keeps many of us alive, that continues the fundamental human tradition of caring for the most vulnerable, a practice that predates civilization itself. Between severe staffing cuts and the potential damage done by DOGE to the programs and computer systems that keep it all running, I live in constant fear that Social Security, disability, and SSI payments will just stop being dispersed. Every single month, I feel sick with anxiety as I wait to see if my payment will come in. We have the budget bill, which some have already spoken to, which gutted Medicaid and cut funding for myriad other programs that support disabled Americans. And also the recently passed rescission bill that cut $9 billion of already approved funding, largely for programs that support disabled and vulnerable communities globally. People will die as a result of both of these bills, especially those with disabilities. Make no mistake, this is mass slaughter approved by our federal legislators and administered through the dry, grinding gears of bureaucracy, as though death through the deprivation of treatments and care that keep us alive, here and abroad, will keep their hands any cleaner. But the fact of the matter is, the leaders of this administration see nothing wrong with this. They have been unmoved by decades of disability activism and advocacy. Under the logic of fascism and, frankly, the logic of capitalism, those of us who cannot work to generate profit for the rich, who do not meet whatever standards they have defined as acceptable, are worth least of all. For those of us who depend on Social Security benefits or other government-funded programs, our future hangs in the balance, depending on how much damage these fascists can do with control over our government, how long it will be until they are removed from power, depending on how thoroughly they can convince the rest of this country that we should be killed via deprivation, removed as a drain on society for the greater good. This was the argument used by the Nazi Party to justify the Holocaust. Fascist rhetoric states that society is burdened by those considered inferior, defective, degenerate. Words still applied to disabled bodies and neurodivergent minds. This definition is changed and stretched to include anyone they want to exterminate, but it applies to us first. The Nazis first developed and used gas chambers to kill the disabled and mentally ill before utilizing the same technology in their genocide of the Jewish people and anyone else they considered to be inconvenient. About 200,000 disabled people were murdered between 1940 and 1945. It is up to the rest of this country, to the rest of this society, to decide whether this will be allowed to happen again or whether we will all rise up and fight back. We already know that Trump is a eugenicist. So many disabled people were killed by neglect and eugenicist policies during Trump's first term in office, and his second term is already shaping up to be so much worse. We remember those that we have lost. We remember what the Trump regime has already done to us, and we will fight back against whatever eugenicist policies he comes up with next. Our lives have value, whether we can generate capital or not. There is no wrong way to be a human being. There is no justification for taking away people's rights, their means for survival, their autonomy and freedom. So here is my call to the able-bodied and neurotypical people in this country, to everyone who hears this. Around the world, in every community, the disabled are one of the most vulnerable groups and one of the most invisibilized. We need you to listen when we speak. We need you to believe us when we name our struggles and needs, to trust us as authorities on the struggles we face. Too often, we are spoken over, patronized, talked down to, accused of lying about our own lived realities. As the climate crisis worsens, as the political situation in this country worsens, I call on you, our legislators, our leaders, our neighbors, our communities, to not only give us a seat at the table, but to listen to our expertise, to follow us as leaders. We know how to create networks of mutual aid for survival in a scarcity of resources. We know how to surpass barriers of difference. We know how to fight for our rights when no one even sees us as people capable of thought and agency, when we don't even have access to the buildings where decisions are made. You need us as much as we need you. We are, all of us, interdependent, and that is our greatest strength and our greatest hope. To all of the disabled, chronically ill, mentally ill, and neurodivergent folks out there, I love you. I treasure you as the gems that you are, just as I treasure my trans and intersex siblings, my immigrant neighbors, my Black, Brown, and Indigenous relatives, and every other person living in targeted communities around the world. We are stronger than these fascists in the US and abroad. I know we are because we have seen it time and time again when we fight back. And I know that we will keep fighting out of love and rage and fierce hope. We will resist. We will fight like hell to stop these people from destroying our communities, from dividing us, from convincing our country that some of us are not worthy of life. We all deserve to be here. And I know we will keep fighting for our collective liberation until we make it through this together and build the better future that we deserve. Thank you. And now it is my pleasure to introduce Joanna Whitney, an anthropologist and disability justice activist. Oh, yes. What was your name again? I'm sorry. Letitia Ward. It is my pleasure to introduce another member of our community, Letitia Ward, to speak.
Hi everyone. My name is Letitia Ward. When I'm from Canada. When I was a kid, I went to a regular school, and people in the classroom were help me at all. And then after that, then I went to a school for the blind. That was really great, but I have some concerns about, because I have Medicare and Medicaid, and I can't lose that because I don't like what Donald Trump is doing, because I have Medicare and I don't want to lose that, because I think everyone should have a right for that, and I want our world to be a safe space, and I think that I just don't want to lose that, because then I won't have anything if I don't have like Medicare, because we need to get Donald Trump out of this office like really bad, and LGBT, and because I don't know what I would do if I lose that in this. That's why I'm worried about this country, and that's why I think we need to have a march for people with disabilities in our community, and I think we need to go down to the DC or Boston to support our Disabilities Act, and I think we need to get everyone together, like both sides on the aisle, and communicate, and not like fight each other. We need to fight back for my right, and I really want us to get rid of this guy who's the orange guy and I need my Medicare back, so I don't know what, because sometimes I wrote a letter to Ed Markey and I haven't heard back from him, and I'm kind of scared what the next step is. So that's why I want to be part of the state, because I want to, and they need to get rid of the R word too, because I'm going to be going to UMass in the fall, and some students use that word everywhere, so we need to fight this for this country. So thank you.
Do you want me to go on and introduce you again? All right, now it is my pleasure. Thank you so much for speaking, Letitia. And now it is my pleasure to introduce Joanna Whitney, an anthropologist and disability justice activist, and the person who pulled this whole event together. So thank you so much, Joanna, and here you go for closing remarks.
In old buildings, I have to be careful to put the brakes on my wheelchair, or I go rolling off the frame. So thank you all so much for being here in person, for watching online. This is going to be curated at the library YouTube channel, so if you know people who are interested, who weren't able to be here today, it will be shareable. If you told me in June this is what I would be working on in July, I would not have believed you. I thought I was already busy. But as the big bad bill moved forward, lots of people were calling all our friends around the country to try and get Congress to step back from the worst that bill had to offer. We weren't successful, at least not in the immediate term, but whenever there is something that happens that offers really shaking things up. It also offers tremendous opportunity for change. The same old is not an option. And one of the things that I know is true about the disability community as a broad and diverse group, we are really good at thinking beyond the box. That's where we live. So if you want ideas about how to do differently, how to do more imaginatively, how to think about things that currently do not exist, the disability community has been working on that for a very long time. One of the things, I'm just going to really quickly do a little bit of a history. There's not going to be a test. You don't need to take notes. So President George H.W. Bush signed the ADA in July 26 of 1990. The Capitol crawl happened on March 12th of 1990, where about 60 disability rights activists crawled up the 83 steps of the Capitol building. In 1998, the Deaf President Now protests took place at Gaudelet University. They were able to transform the administration so that for the first time, the person leading that institution was somebody with a lived experience of deaf culture. In 1978, We Will Ride protests in Denver, Colorado took place to push the buses and the transportation system to become disability inclusive. People chained themselves in front of buses to make the point. In 1977, there was the occupation of the Office of Health, Education, and Welfare in San Francisco. Disability activists were pushing for the enforcement of Section 504 of the 1973 Rehabilitation Act. People from a wide variety of disability groups came together both to occupy the building and to support people in that building. One of the main ways that they were able to communicate was by having people who knew ASL inside the building and outside the building. And lo and behold, just because you're turning off access to phone lines and stuff like that, if you've got a window and people who know how to communicate with sign, you've got a tremendous workaround. There were community members, including the Black Panthers Party, that did a lot of important support for people who were putting themselves on the line. In 1974, the last of the ugly laws was repealed in Chicago. Before that, police could arrest people with disabilities for being disabled in public. There's ways that those attitudes have still not been fully retired, but at least we've now had several decades of changing that conversation so that while there's still more work to be done, it's becoming increasingly the case that the ability of members of the disability community to be present, just to be present, is something that maybe we can't take for granted all of the time, but we're seeing more and more institutions stepping up to say, yep, we got to do this, and we got to need to figure out how to do this right. This library is an example of that happening. It was built in the late 19th century when a lot of people with disabilities were living in institutions. From that time till now, sure, there are still details that need to be worked out, but it is a very different library as far as being a place that people with disabilities can come to, can participate in their programs, can just show up to check out books or any number of other kinds of things, but be in a cool space on a hot day. let's see, 1972, SSI was created by the amendment to the Social Security amendments of 1977 Act. In 1968, the Architectural Barriers Act began demanding buildings that received federal funds that they needed to be made accessible. In 1965, Medicaid assistance for people with disabilities and those with low income, Title 19 of the Social Security Act was passed. And in 1950, the ARC was founded. In terms of disability pride, I think it's important for us to give a shout out to that agency in particular. Every year, they are the people who set the theme for the current year's Pride Month. And so one of the things that quick move through history, there's a lot that didn't get talked about, but we see that there's a long history of disability activism. There's a long history of moving on different issues that end up kind of increasing the opportunity the next time a group brings forward whatever their issue is, so that we're building on the work that has come before. We're now at a time that, yep, we know challenges are coming. We have some sense of what those threats are, although I don't know that they're solid enough yet to really be able to say, this is what's going to happen, that's what's going to happen. But we are also in a place where we've got really strong allies up and down the board. One of the things that's important for everybody that spoke today, it's important for members of the public to know we are the engine that they rely on. We need to be the ones saying to the mayor, saying to our representatives and, you know, the Attorney General's office or whoever it may be, here's something going on and we want you to pay attention. We want you to work with us to fix it, to make the community a better, more inclusive space. So if you've never been active before, I encourage you to start showing up at different things. Think about what you're interested in and find out what's going on in your community that matches that interest. Start there. Look at who else is active in your community. Talk to them. Find out how they started to get involved and what kinds of things that they did. And not everybody is going to be equally good at doing every single thing. Figure out what you're good at, figure out what you are passionate about, and find ways to bring the disability experience forward in that aspect of this community building that we're all a part of. Thank you all very, very much. Happy Disability Pride Month.